What's up, everyone? Good morning. How are you doing today? I hope that you're doing well. Thank you so much for being here with me, for joining me on the channel today as we dive into our first listen of Isao Tomita. We're going to listen to Snowflakes Are Dancing here. You listen to this 1974 album, his second studio album that we're taking a listen to today. This has been recommended, the artist himself, Isao, has been recommended for such a long time, ever since we started listening to a lot of, more electronic based music here on the channel. So just to throw out a few names who had recommended this was recommended by Terry Roxburgh, Ilume Eltonin, David Oliveris, Bob Holtzman, Jack the Ripper. Let's see, hold on, there's more. I know there's more because I see you. Stephen Dennis, I see you there as well. Mr. Pixel Rancher, gotta ranch up those pixels. And the list goes on from there. Tony Etchells, thank you as well. And Joseph Worth. It just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. So, we're going to dive into the album today. I don't have it available on streaming, so we're going to listen to it via YouTube. I can imagine that there's going to be ads that are going to pop up as we go through this. I can't stop that, so we'll just have to bear through those. If I remember, I'll edit them, but there's a chance I'll forget to. I'm just putting it out there, so there's a chance. So, but hopefully I remember to edit those out of there. So, yeah, hope that you guys enjoy the album listen with me today. Hope that you enjoy the music. I'm excited to see the interpretations, I guess you could say, because all of these, I'm looking at the Wikipedia, the album consists entirely of Tomita's arrangements of Claude Debussy's tone paintings performed by him on Moog and Mellotron. Can't really go wrong with those. So I'm curious to see the reinterpretation of these pieces. So let's go ahead and dive in here. Before we begin, of course, if you do want to support what I do here on the channel, you can join me over on Patreon for as little as $2 a month. Helps me do more reactions, etc., etc. You guys already know. So anyways, just tossing that out there. But for now, let's toss out the first track. Or not toss out. Toss in. That's going to be Snowflakes Are Dancing. I'm sure that I'll recognize some of these. Some of them I don't expect to recognize, though. Like I recognize Claire de Lune immediately. Anyways, let's get into it. Here we go. There's your first ad.
Off clean feel.
Let's go. This must be ripped from vinyl as well. That's interesting. This sounds like communicating, sending out signals via satellites. I like this. This is a nice opening. Kind of gets you settled in. Sounds like a digital crash. Okay, so the first track is really just like a prelude to whatever's to come next. Like it feels like the opening, the beginning, an overture, whatever you want to call it. But I do like how spacey it is, and already I'm kind of getting a sense of, I guess, the electronic reinterpretations of classical pieces. It looks like this piece, Snowflakes Are Dancing, is based off of a part I don't know exactly, but it's based from Children's Corner, six movement suite for solo piano by Claude Debussy. So, like I said, I don't have a reference point. I don't think that I've heard that piece. I may have, but I can't recognize it. But regardless, it's kind of cool, like how spacey this sounds. Like all the digital sounds and the sweeping. You can kind of get a sense of like violin. Of course, that's going to be Moog in there, or maybe Mellotron. Who knows? But it's very spacey, very cosmic setup. I'm curious to hear how this goes. So I don't want to talk too much about that one. I want to move on to the next track, which is going to be Reverie. Let's go. Okay, we'll look the last few seconds of that play. Had to edit so I could get this all kind of synced up right together. Moving into Reverie. This sounds familiar. That's a great reinterpretation. Like, huh. This is really nice. Huh. Now that's an interesting sound. I'm just listening to this. I'm just engaged. I love the different sounds and textures that are brought into. We're going to talk about that. Okay, just briefly, just for a moment, let's talk about Reverie. So I did recognize that. I can't tell you where, but I've heard that main melody before. Um, One thing I'm catching about this sounds like such a cool mix of classical music and electronic music. And I mean, yes, that's obvious with based on what we're listening to, but it doesn't sound like it's necessarily trying to reinvent the music. It's more like it's paying strong homage to and an ode to the music there of Debussy, but also integrating and using these electronic and analog synthesizers, et cetera, to give a different, I should say, shine a different light on different aspects of the music here. So it doesn't sound dated to me, at least listening to just these first two tracks here. It sounds of its age, but it doesn't sound dated because it still sounds so strong and classical, which I guess you could say really, really shows the deep strengths towards Debussy and his composition originally, that it still stands the test of time, no matter how you not rearrange, but change the sounds and everything. But the actual synths and the sounds that Tomita is coming up with, and the textures that are coming in and out, yeah, they sound futuristic at this particular time, but they're still bounded strongly in those traditional compositions of Debussy there, which is just really, really cool. I'm looking here on the Wikipedia page just to see some information about this one. And it says the album is considered an early example of proto-synth pop, sparked a revolution in synthesizer programming. The album's contributions to electronic music included an ambience resembling a symphony orchestra, because you really do feel that in here, the use of reverberation, use of phrasing, flanging to create a spatial audio effect with stereo speakers, realistic string simulations, portamento whistles, bell sounds like we heard in the beginning, ring modulation. There's a lot going on in here. It says that Tomita created the album's polyphonic sounds by recording selections one at a time, taking 14 months to produce the album. One sound at a time, bit by bit, brick by brick. That is crazy. Let's move on into the next track here, which is going to be Gardens in the Rain. Let's go. So I guess that this synth replaces piano. And those hollow voices echoing in the back. Quick run. This one becomes a lot more adventurous, huh? Can you imagine watching him creating this slide? Ooh, I like that deep vocal effect there. And the drawing strings. There's that whistling. Some space birds out there in the trees. dreamscape this is. I like this harpsichord-like sound coming through. Okay. First of all, if I ever miss anything, I'm using like the full album version here on YouTube, and there's no like timestamps, or I can't tell which song ends where or which track ends where. So I'm assuming that's the ending of that one. I'm listening for that like perfect silence, but I could mess it up. So I'm just letting you know ahead of time in case I messed it up in the future, or if I have messed it up. So Gardens in the Rain starts off a little bit more abstract and adventurous than I was expecting, but I guess coming off of the not calm, but I guess it's kind of calm reverie. Like this one has a little bit more of that experimental nature to it. I love the harpsichord like sounds in here, and I don't know, but I'm just assuming like Tomita must have been like a very strong musician and composer in the first place, and he just took his talents into like the electronic side of things in creating this and his other works that have been recommended to me and everything. So I think that's really cool. And like I said, I don't know how that came about. I don't know his history. I'm just kind of speaking here, hopefully not out of turn. But it's just really cool to see like that kind of mind, that kind of composer and musician who was perhaps steeped in something more classical, lending their efforts into something truly progressive, future pressing, moving forward here in electronic based, music and everything. And you see that with a lot of musicians who are rooted in one thing. They played something traditional and then they move on to something completely different, and really pushes that genre and brings something new to the genre. Here, those strong classical leanings that we're getting here in Gardens in the Rain. Let's go ahead and move on into the next track, which is going to be one that I'm sure many of us, if not all, are familiar with, Claire de Lune. Let's give that one a listen. Oh, there's an ad. I like that echo on there. This brings a certain different kind of hypnotic quality into the music. Some harps coming in, maybe? It's like the sound is stretched out and thinned in some way. See how this part goes. I like the sound of the mellotron for this particular section. It's incredibly uplifting. Ooh, and the gentle pulses from the bottom, swinging upwards. How cool is that? The sounds chosen and used are so cool to listen to. That nice rebound. That's like a very old school kind of sound. This sound, like this theremin-like sound, I guess, maybe? And the shimmering strings in the back there. Final run. Rising to eventual majesty. Twisting that knob up for the last second. Ooh, got a little THX sound on there at the end. Okay, so Clair de Lune, like I said, it's a piece of music that is very famous. A lot of people know it. A lot of people, and I can't say everybody because I don't know everything. So one thing that's interesting for me coming into this album on a first listen is for that piece, which I do know, it's really cool for me to hear and for me to like predict, okay, what is he gonna do? How is he gonna change the music here? What sounds is he gonna use? What tones is he gonna bring in? And obviously I'm new to him in general, so I'm still kind of stepping into this portion of his music, into his slice of music. But it is so cool the way that he brings in all these different sounds and tones and pulses from the back, Mellotron raining these voices, and it's just really cool to listen to. And I really meant it when I said that this doesn't sound dated. It sounds of its age, but not dated. Like, you could put this on. It's reminiscent of like old TV sci-fi kind of soundtracks, like that. I can't even do the noises. But like those sounds, it sounds like of the instrumentation of its era, but still at the advent and the beginning of electronic music and where it was going from there. And to hear that this classic piece reinterpreted with those sounds is just brilliant. I think it sounds absolutely wonderful. He did a great job of course, what I guess you could say with the rest of the music probably too, keeping the spirit, but just giving it a new jacket. Keeping the body, changing the clothes. Leave the underwear. Let's move on into the next track here, which is Arabesque number 1. Let's go. And skip the ad. like an orchestra is just there in the room. It's like that someone was dialing a number. Oh wow, that's a sound. That's an interesting sound. It's almost vocal to an extent, like a muffled voice. Clearly manipulated though. This sounds like very much. Ooh, organ coming in. Sound comes back in. What is that? We just went stronger now with it. I like how some of these sound like telephone presses. Okay, let's talk about Arabesque for just a moment here. This sounds like the most complete piece, besides, I would say, Reverie that we've heard thus far. Like, I don't know why I'm saying it. Just sounds like it has everything in it. This one sounds like it is. I mean, it wraps up the first side of the album if you want to go that route. But like, it just has everything. But can anyone tell me what that sound is? That wah 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 wah. Well, those are more muffled. Like that sound. Like, what is that? Because it sounds like a voice, but so muffled, like so muffled. But then like puts through some augmenter of some sort. I don't know. There's some processing. There's some stuff going on there. But it like, what an interesting sound. Because at first I was like, I don't know if that fits. I don't know if it feels right in there. But can I tell you, for as standoutish as it was in the music, it did kind of work, and it did add a certain levity to the music, I would say. So even though at first it was kind of like, oh, where'd that come from? It actually works really well in there. I like the brief appearances of like organ sounds, once again the strings, and so many other things that I can't even tell you what they are. But it's really interesting looking at the recording part here on the Wikipedia page, because there is so much recording hardware and musical instruments that are listed here. And I mean, like, for him to have all these sounds, for him to have created all these sounds that apparently, looking at the Wikipedia page, also says would be later copied in presets for other instruments. Like, this is the beginning. Like, I don't know if it's like the beginning, but I mean it's pretty close, 1974. And you know, I was thinking like, all right, didn't let's see, we landed on the moon in 1969, if I remember correctly. Like I would imagine, and of course, if you were there or around at the time, you can tell me and fill me in. But like the space race, you know, sci-fi really kind of taking um, a place in TV and pop culture at the time. Um, all that kind of stuff, you know, going to the moon. Like this really must have seemed like the future, and in many ways it was, and it is. I just think that that's really incredible to look at that from not only just a musical point of view, because I think it sounds great, but historically as well. So let's go ahead and flip. My voice just cracked. Did you guys hear that? Let's go ahead and flip ourselves onto the next side of the album. And usually, what I do is, you know, I like to give a little test. I like to say, like, hey, let me know something, you know, at this point while we're halfway through, to let me know you're still watching. And honestly, I have no idea what to what to tell you to do or to put in the comments. So, look down. If you look, no, look up. And what do you see? Tell me what you see, and that's the test. Type in what you see if you look up. For me, it's just a white ceiling and a ceiling fan. And then I got some, you know, I got my light. There you guys see my light here. Okay, that's about to fall. Let me not do that. I shouldn't do it. Let's go ahead and move ourselves into the next track on side B, which is going to be the Engulfed Cathedral. What is it engulfed in? Flames? That's the only thing I can imagine it be engulfed in. Or some boss pulses. I like these flitters of robotic birds that flutter about here, like from the eaves of the cathedral. One of them hit a bell. A pigeon hit a bell. Quasimodo's up there. There is a certain ambience that kind of grounds everything and allows other sounds to kind of spark and fly above. destroyed. Now we're recreating. Parasite's Eve. No. Sounds like an aria of sorts. And now even the bells have changed slightly. Now the choir's returned. And the music is very swelling in this moment. It reminds me of Vangelis. The bells always return. The engulfed cathedral really does live up to its name. I love how it really, I mean, like I said, I haven't heard the original, so I can't compare in that regard. But it does sound like, a cathedral. You hear the mass of voices. It sounds like we're at a service in a cathedral, and the choir is singing from the pulpits, or pulpits? Yeah, they're singing from the pews, the pews. They're singing from the seats, and it's just this beautiful, beautiful mass of harmonies. And even the production on here sounded different. The voices actually sounded heavier. The music actually sounded heavy in here compared to, at least what I would compare, the lighter tones of the previous, which was kind of cool. It's just sounded like we were sitting in like an electronic church, I guess you could say. I like how the bell rings out. I like how in the very beginning, to me, it just sounds like birds fluttering and leaving like the windows, the eaves, etc. But then it sounds like one of them hit the bell at one point. But this is just a wonderful massive sound to listen to. And I might, just because I really like this sound here, I might even venture to say that this could be one of my favorite tracks on the album so far. We're a little bit early with it, but that's one that, yes, it's called Engulfed, but I feel enveloped by it. It feels comforting and secure and safe. That's cool. You guys hear the thunder? It's raining. You can't feel it, but the room is shaking a little bit from that thunder. Anyways, let's hope the power doesn't go out and move on into the next track, which is Passipede? 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 Passipede. I thought that was the music, and I said that is completely different. That's funny. I like this little flute with this gentle... What a whimsical sound. like how that synth organ comes in. Just for a moment. And now these big gorgeous strings came sweeping in. I like this constant slowing down, pulling up. Synth harpsichord. I like those moments. I wish it kind of stayed a little bit longer. So bubbly too. What a fun, whimsical track. That one is like the fun track. That's the jester in the electronic court. That's what Pacified sounds like to me. I really like the beginning where we have those I don't know, synth runs, the moog, and then that kind of flutish sound playing on top of that. But then occasionally you would get, you know, little bits of organ, harpsichord, and once again that big tidal wave of strings that would come forth on this track. Just because I'm kind of curious. So I guess this is from Suite Bergamasque. It says that, I'm reading about the original movement on here. It says the composer, who is of course Debussy, was initially unwilling to use these relatively early piano compositions because they were not in his mature style, but he accepted an offer from a publisher that would eventually be successful. Passipede, or Passipide, had first been composed under the title Pavane, or Pavan, rather. These names come from poems of Paul Verlaine, not Tom Verlaine of television. So this is actually. Oh, okay. Listen, I'm learning classical music and such is not my forte whatsoever. So the whole Suite Bergamasque is prelude, minuet, Clair de Lune, which we've heard, and then Passipide, which we just heard. So Clair de Lune actually precedes this particular piece in the original suite. Okay. So it actually makes more sense to kind of listen to those two back to back, I guess you could argue. I guess I'll have to do that on my own time since they weren't included together. Anyways, let's move on into the next track, The Girl with the Flaxen Hair. What does flaxen mean? Hopefully that's maybe need some conditioner or something. did a great job composing this and reinterpreting it. Kind of sounds familiar. That little movement right there. Couldn't tell you where I've heard it though. That sound is so cool. That kind of humming sound. Like it's tapes being sped up and backed off. I don't know. You know what I really like about Girl with the Flaxen Hair? Hold on, there's an ad about to play. You know what I really like about that? Actually, I'm gonna mute it and let the ad play. Thinking ahead. It was very calm and moving, and it had this really interesting kind of ocean of ambience, I would say, behind the music. I have to skip the ads and get it ready. Okay. It had this really interesting kind of ocean of ambience behind the music, which sounded like kind of tides, like kind of out by the beach at night, and you see the moon out there just shining nicely on the waters as they calmly go to and fro. And then you had the music which kind of swept over that ambience. And that ambience was kind of there the whole time from what I could kind of hear. Like there was that bed of water, and then the music, the strings which come and sweep in. You had that sound that I can't identify what it is. I mean, obviously it's some sort of synth or whatever, but it sounds like someone humming. But there's also this kind of like tape manipulation sound behind it. So it's like, like, I don't know, but it was just really cool. And what I'm kind of getting, another thing is like listening to this, it sounds like you truly could have an orchestra being played with an electronic musician. That's what this sounds like, because the sounds, at least to my ears, they sound so real. They sound so well integrated into the music itself. It doesn't sound like weird, like, ew, that's definitely not strings. That's someone on a keyboard or whatever. Like, it has a certain tonality that really, at least to me, just sounds like real strings. Obviously, I have no real experience of classical music and stuff, so I'm sure to someone much more experienced, you could easily tell, oh yeah, that ain't a real string. But it just sounds so good. Like, it sounds like the true integration and collaboration between some symphonic, piece and orchestra, and then Isao Tomita, the actual electronic musician here. So I just think that sounds really cool. And there was a moment in The Girl with Flaxen Hair that did sound familiar. I couldn't tell you where I've heard it. It just sounds like one of those, it was one of those movements. I was like, I feel like I've heard that in a movie or something, but I couldn't tell you where from. Let's move on into the next track, which is going to be Gali Wog's Cakewalk. Okay, let's jump in. Did I press play? I guess it's coming. There it is. Maybe it's flying a little bit. Okay. It's kind of funky, kind of different. Sounds like a bass solo. This is completely different than the other tracks we've heard. Is this the first track that has like kind of a drum sound? Kind of? Wow, wow, wow. What is this? Okay. Okay. Never mind. This was the court jester. This this track. This was definitely the most playful out of the tracks. This sounded like something straight out of a toy box. And now I'm remembering kind of what that sound reminds me of. That womp 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 womp. It sounds like this might be a little bit of Mandela effect or whatever, but it sounds like the teacher from Charlie Brown, because didn't she talk like wah wah wah, like that's what it sounds like here. I'm listening to like Banjo Kazooie voices when I hear that. Also, I may be wrong, and I guess you could argue the bells are really the first, but it sounds like we kind of have like the first percussion kind of in here, because you have like the wood blocks, even that the bassy wah 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 kind of sounds like you get that marching drum kind of sound to it. Like this sounds like a marching band procession or like piece of music, because you could see them marching and playing and in their suits and everything, their tall hats and the feathers and the caps. Like that's what I see listening to this track. I'll be 100% honest. I didn't like it. This is like, I don't know. I just didn't like how it sounded, and it kind of took me out of the environment of the music a little bit. But it is only 2 minutes and 50 seconds, so it's not like a very long departure. But I will admit that even at such a short runtime, I was kind of like, let's get back into the other stuff. I'm ready to go back into space. I'm ready to go back in a space shuttle, go back into the cosmos. Right now, you got me Rick and Morty, Anyways, let's move on to the final track of the album, which is Footprints in the Snow. Going back to our snow theme that we first joined into, of course, with Snowflakes Are Dancing. So let's go ahead and get into it. Will we have 50 words for these? notes of that wind. Just kind of lightly echoing in the back amongst the melodies. This could almost act as a prelude to like ambient music as well, thinking about it. This is definitely a cool down, resting your heartbeat. I like that sound right there. Like you're pressing the note, or he's pressing the note, but there's that quick bend into the note. Now the big strings come in. Space left in this one too. Yeah, that's pretty much the perfect closing to the album. That's pretty much the perfect piece of music to bring everything back down to a halt. I mean, especially after the last track, which was just, you know. But this one was reflective. There was a certain coldness to it, which I'm not just saying because it's footprints in the snow, but there was a certain coldness to it. But then you had those little light notes of dun 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 that kind of added a still warm beat into the music. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It felt like a hearth at a home in a like surrounded by a cold night, like winter, blizzard, it's outside, but there's this little cottage with a little bit of light. And you know that in that cottage there's still some warmth. And this felt like taking those first few steps into the door and just beginning to like feel your fingers again. You know, you can take off your scarf and your hat and warm yourself by the fire. That's what this music was progressing to, and this sound was progressing to. That's just like what I felt listening to it. But I like how echoey and reverb you would have on those notes, those bong, and they would just be allowed to ring, and the sustain would eventually kind of fade into those winds, which were constantly there, you know? Which, once again, I think that ambience is really nice in the music, and the way that it draws up and back out again. Just really, really cool to listen to. Like, this was a cool album to listen to. I'm still going to go with The Engulfed Cathedral as my favorite. I just really like the sound. and maybe even Reverie. Definitely the Engulfed Cathedral is my favorite here on the album. Maybe Reverie, but I'll have to give it another listen since, this is just our first time listening to this and going back from the beginning to the back is the way you got to do it afterwards. So, wonderful album. I'm looking at all the information. We went over a lot of it about this album and all the sounds that Tomita created. Thank you guys so much for the recommendation for this one. I see that a lot of the tracks here were used in a lot of different places. Jack Horkheimer, Star Hustler, which sounds like a superhero, to be honest. Stargazers, the 2020 Summer Olympics closing ceremony. That's cool. So let me know what you guys thought of the album. You can let me know in the comments down below. You can follow me over on Twitter. You can support the channel if you enjoy what I do over on Patreon for as little as $2 a month. But otherwise, please enjoy the rest of your day. Hope you enjoyed sitting down with me. Sorry for all the edits that I'm going to have to do to get this all right with all the ads and stuff. That's why I like using like a streaming service. It's all right there. Ba, 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 ba. Anyways, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.